All right, so welcome everybody to afternoon Masterclass from Classic Pianos Colorado in Denver, Colorado on South Broadway. And my name is Rob Mullins. I'm here as a presenter telling stories about my life as a musician and giving people tips and strategies on what they could do to be successful in the music business. And my lovely co-host over there is Amelia Ransom, and she is a singer, a virtuoso violinist, a better than average guitar player, and she's based out of Nashville, and I'm currently based out of Denver. So we want to welcome everybody online to our first streaming workshop. We're going to be doing more of these in the future. We're excited about that. And today we've got some stuff planned as far as just different things that you can do in order to make your career go a little better. So, but Amelia and I have done a few shows before, and she's now kind of worked her way up in Nashville to where she's doing some of the cooler gigs, basing out of there, and then most of this year she's been on tour. So why don't you tell the folks out there what it's like living in Nashville, how do you get gigs, where did you play recently?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, to preface, I grew up here in Colorado. I'm from Louisville. So I'm familiar with Colorado and kind of what the music scene was here. I grew up playing classical music. I studied with James Maurer, who is the professor of violin at University of Denver for a long time. And then after I graduated, I decided that I wanted to pursue sort of alternative styles of music. I was really into fiddle music. And like bluegrass, Irish fiddle, all that kind of stuff. And there's really only one choice if that's what you want to do, and that's to move to Nashville.
Right.
So I went there, and ironically, it was January of 2020 when I finally was like, I'm gonna like really hit it and like go out on my own. And then this thing called the coronavirus happened. So it was crazy that that it was just right after. It was like I was finally doing it, and then it all just went away. And then I've kind of been building back up to the point where I am now, I feel like, for the past however long it's been, 6 years now.
About 6.
But if there's one piece of advice that I could give anyone who wants to move to Nashville or to any music city, to like, or any city to pursue music, it's that like your talent, your skill, like yes, obviously that matters, but almost more so than anything else, it's all about who you know. Like I didn't expect that. I didn't realize that that was such a big deal. But the networking aspect of music, and I don't know if it's like this in maybe like New York or LA or anything like that, but personally in Nashville, like networking is at least 50%, if not 60% of the gig, because who you know matters. Because if they hear about a gig for a fiddle player, they're going to say, oh my gosh, I know her, I'm going to recommend her for the gig. Whereas if nobody knows who I am, nobody's going to know who I am. Nobody's going to call me, nobody's going to recommend me. So the biggest like piece of advice that I've ever told anybody about trying to pursue music is put just as much emphasis on who you know and the relationships you build as you are on the music factor. Because at the end of the day, like there's people who maybe are going to get a gig that I'm interested in, who I personally don't feel have as much skill or talent or whatever, but because they knew the person or had that personal connection, they'll get picked. So like, yes, it matters to be talented, but it also matters to know people. I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've learned in moving to Nashville. And
yeah, I mean, we were talking before we started, I've spent a limited amount of time in Nashville, but my story is that I was here in Colorado making albums in my early 20s as a very self-motivated composer and jazz musician. I had already been to New York to study. I came back here and then I started making albums. So, you know, Denver in the 80s at that time was just kind of just beginning to have a scene. There was already some studio stuff happening out in Netherlands because there was a place called Caribou Ranch. And they had, Chicago was working out there, Chick Corea did a record out there, Dan Fogelberg. It was like Colorado was the hip place to escape to during those days. And by the time I had gotten a couple albums under my belt and felt like I was ready to do the most meaningful solo project to my heart, because I was in a band where I had saxophone and I got really tired of that and I wanted to do something more piano oriented. So I made this album called Soulscape, and my strategy, because today is about what are the strategies, how do you do stuff. My strategy was make a record that was going to be contemporary and modern acoustic piano and technology, but then send it out to radio, because my band had done something at Metro State University and they gave me the NPR mailing list in exchange for recording my band. So I thought that was a great opportunity to start with the mailing list of all the public radio stations. And I went in, a friend of mine had a studio in Cherry Creek, and he was a military coder. So he had a 9-foot Yamaha, a synclavier, a synthesizer down there, and a drum machine before MIDI was invented. So he let me have keys to his basement for a few months, and the result was this project right here, which is called Soulscape, and it was my 5th album. Hey, come on in. Come on in and have a seat. Hey. And, you know, this was in the days where there was no internet. So if you were going to do anything, it was just going to be LPs or cassettes. So I made this album and just had one other player on it, a bass player played on a couple of tunes. And then at that point, I just said, okay, I have the albums. I got to go mailing this out to the mailing list. And it was expensive in those days because you had to do everything, no computers, no cell phones, written notebook of all the addresses, and I autographed to every program director all across America, which was over 100 stations at that time. I personally signed the front of this album, and then I had to go buy the packaging material, right? The box, which was a lot, and then the tape, and then the postage. And you know, you pay like $5 for each one of those things times 100, well then all of a sudden you have an investment in the postage, but I had a return address on there and people, the market wasn't crowded. Within 6 months, I had a top 10 album in America for jazz. And I was really surprised about that because I didn't have a manager. I had printed my P.O. box on the back of the album. I started getting these letters, and then within another 6 months, people in Los Angeles were calling saying, we want to sign you to a record deal based on this album. Would you come to LA? So I went to LA and lived there for many years. So strategically, what I've always tried to do, because I've had the same jobs my whole life, I started working at a piano store as a music teacher when I was 15 in Bear Valley, which is right by Lakewood at Logan Music Center. And everywhere that I've gone throughout my whole life, I love great pianos. And usually piano store guys are super cool. We have a really cool one here in Denver. Bob Baker is fantastic.
Is that right?
And I did 21 years with Pierre at Pierre's Fine Pianos in Los Angeles. So I've always had, my thing has been teach piano, which I love to do. I started teaching when I was 13 years old, and I still do that. I really enjoy it a lot. Go work at the piano store, sell pianos, or do workshops, or write books, or help people make albums, and then go out and play gigs. And I've been doing those basic things now probably 45 or 50 years, the same stuff. Because I knew right away when I got the reinforcement from great jazz musicians who heard me, I started getting work already, and that was enough for the social proof and the public thing where, okay, this kid's legit, let's get him out there and start doing stuff.
I would anticipate or assume that my experience is probably a little bit different from yours too, just because I was obviously in a totally different generation at that point.
Different generation and different genre.
Different genre, and there's so many people, because Nashville is such a music-focused city, there's so many people that move there every day to pursue music.
Right.
So you are very much a small fish in a big pond, you know?
Right.
And there's just so much, whereas I don't know back then, especially in jazz, I don't know how much of a like market there was, or like if it was quite as saturated. I mean, I'm sure it was still, you know, competitive, but
Well, jazz fusion was a thing. Like Chick Corea's band that came out of Miles Davis was a thing. Herbie Hancock lived in LA, and when I first got out there and started looking for gigs, it was, you know, the sensation of this album, which I spent a lot of money on and worked hard on, but everybody that would come in and maybe offer me a job would say, you know, we're going to give you this gig, but just remember you're a nobody from Denver, and if we don't like it, we'll just call Herbie Hancock or Chick Corea. So it's not exactly a confidence builder when they start with telling you, well, we have guys way better than you. But contemporary jazz radio was something that just kind of happened when R&B and Miles Davis's Bitches Brew project collided, and all of a sudden there was just, you know, keyboard and guitar players writing this music, contemporary jazz, that started to take hold. So since I was one of the first guys in that, the other people were Jeff Lorber, who plays piano, and David Benoit, and a guitar player named Russ Freeman. And the beginnings of what's now called smooth jazz radio was based on the four of us. So we were able to be taking like the whole industry a different genre and direction, instead of having to fit ourselves into whatever the Nashville thing was or the LA thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's really challenging trying to get gigs when you're first there. Like, how did you get your first gig?
Oh gosh. So I actually, how did I get my first gig? I was working for a guy who's a music entertainment lawyer, and he also owns a management company. So he was from Chicago, and he had a guy that did PR in Chicago still, and then he was based in Nashville and was kind of running the management side of the business there. And my older brother was in law school at the time, and he's now a music entertainment attorney.
Cool.
So he was clerking with him like as a like credit for law school and stuff, and like that was kind of his first job. But he was like kind of like, I need help with more of the business stuff, and I was like, well, I know how to use a computer, I could probably help you out. So I started working for him like one day a week. And one of the first, the first time I ever like played on Broadway was with a guy who was one of his clients, who he did like legal and management for. And the guy just was like, yeah, I have like a band put together and the fiddle player can't play tonight, could you come play?
Yeah.
And that guy wasn't necessarily like trying to do music full time. He's a little bit older and was like, you know, had a family and stuff. So this was more of like a side hobby for him. But it was just one of those things where you play there, and then the five guys in the band realize, okay, there's a fiddle player here. I'm playing with this band next week, and they need a fiddle player, and then they tell. And that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, it's the people that end up talking about it, you know?
Well, I think you had an advantage because you already had people that were nearby that were music business people.
Yeah, that's also like
And
the other.
I didn't really have
component.
that, but anybody that's going to try and, you know, get into doing music now or is already doing music wanting to do better, having those key people in your life is really important. And I always say the first most important one is the accountant, and the second most important one is the lawyer. And I'd only had one of those when I first started out, but in my notes I wrote down, getting ready to come in to do this today, what are the three things that every musician should be the most afraid of? And my answer was, number one is the IRS, number two is the DMV, and number three is crazy people. So, but I found out really young by getting audited when I was 19 years old by the IRS that you can't really mess with them, but you can strategically learn to work with you know, the laws and the accountants and them as an entity in order to really advance your business. So I'd say the first thing to do if you're going to do music is start treating it as an actual business. Have a bank account that's associated with that. Have a P.O. box address. That's to keep the crazy people away, because I've had people that have shown up in the middle of the night at my house and, you know, done really crazy things to my doorway. And in those days, we only had like a hole to look out of. we didn't have Ring and all this other stuff. But a ton of your organization needs to be find a really good CPA. And what I did after all the problems that I had, which have been up and down my whole life, is I got a person called an enrolled agent. So what that means is that person used to work for the IRS. So they know all the laws and they know the scoop, and then they've decided to start out on their own as an accountant, defending people against the things for the IRS. But a couple of quick examples. I write off, because I'm basically running my business as a self-employed musician, and then I have Rob Mullins in the name of any of my other possible ancillary businesses, and I have a checking account that all of that stuff goes through, and then that's part of my tax deductions. So if you're, spending money, and I've spent a lot of money making records. I've made 43 of them. I've had 8 that I didn't pay for, and all the rest I paid for. I probably paid about $400,000 by now over a 45-year period. And just being very aware of your expenses. You go to have lunch with somebody and they're in entertainment, then you get to write off, as long as you keep track of it, you get to write off your portion of that meal. If you're buying gas and you're commuting to and from, like a lot of the gigs out here now, people are driving from Denver to Boulder. All that is deductible. You go make posters, you go buy a hard drive, you go get a new computer to keep track of. All of that is deductible. But you have to start thinking of yourself as a business, which is a separate entity from the person that you are going through your life. Because once you have that distinction made, then you can go find a great CPA or an enrolled agent. And I've got somebody really good that's been with me a long time. I'd say who it is, but she doesn't need any business, and I want her to keep working with me. But you can find people out there that will help you on the tax side. And let's face it, a lot of the music business stuff, bottom line, it's really about money. So with every penny that you're spending, you should be able to deduct all of that, right?
Even like your house, like if you use your living room for rehearsals, well, that however much square footage is deductible.
Right, that portion, and the gas, number of miles. And at one point, when I was living in Brentwood, California, I was making really good money, and the IRS had decided they were going to step in and try and, see what exactly is going on. And eventually, between me and my lawyer and my accountant, we read through enough of the laws that were in, the IRS tax code, and I was the one that found it. Anything that's considered a mobile workplace, like driving to piano lessons, and then me driving to Pierre's music store to teach, and then me driving, I don't know, let's say I fly with Hubert Laws to Chicago, and then I go to a music store and I teach some lessons. All of that is deductible, because we found at that point in the tax code, I was actually a mobile office. And what that meant is I didn't have to write down every single mile. I wasn't calculating, how much of my car is business, how much is not. Because I just told the IRS, I said, I have no life, and this is 100% deductible. And if you want to come mess with me over a couple $100, we'll see you at the office. And I know where the IRS office is, on the 10 freeway in Los Angeles. So, the IRS is a thing that I think you need to strategize how you're going to do that. But you can write off a lot of the stuff. And by the way, the people that are, still the gatekeepers, the presidents of the major labels and Spotify and all that, trust me, those people are writing off all their stuff, And when I was with Warner Brothers Records, I was in a situation where I had a huge budget. I had plenty of time to make the album. It was all very exciting. I finished the album, and they wouldn't put the album out because they wanted to use it as a tax write-off there. And I was signed to the label, and I couldn't do anything. So during that 2 years, I wrote maybe 80 songs. I put 12 of them on the album. Here I've got, 70 good tunes, and I can record them, but I can't sell them. I can't release them. I can't tell anyone about them because I'm under contract waiting for them to finish using that budget as a tax write-off and then I'm in the release queue with Warner Brothers, which, okay, we got these 12 albums ahead of you. And you're like, by the time I'm done with all this nonsense, 5 years will have gone by. And what am I going to do? So, that's one of those things that you find out in terms of being with a major label. But, the DMV, you tell me about your DMV stuff, because I've got a story.
I don't have any stories.
About the DMV?
Yeah, I guess I'm just super
Well,
lucky,
I mean, because there's only one Amelia Ransom.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't have any IRS or DMV stories, but
oh, you will.
the night is young, I guess you could say.
You will. As soon as you make over,
I'm
as
sure
soon as you make over $1 million a year, you will have an IRS story.
From your lips to God's ears.
Right.
Yeah, I can only hope.
Out of those three things that I said, these are things that you should fear. Fear the DMV. The reason that I say that is because, this has happened to me twice in the last 25 years. So it's time to renew my driver's license. It should be no big deal. I always have a car that's insured. I always have a car that's smogged. I always follow all the protocol and everything. But I went into a DMV to renew my license. This has happened to me twice, once in 1999 and once in 2021. And, I did the whole written test and they charged me money for that. Then I did the entire driving test and they charged me money for that. Then I got up to window with all of my papers and everything, and they're starting to ring me up for the money, which they do, they get the money. Then the guy goes, oh, just a minute. And he comes back with a piece of paper, hands it to me under the window. He says, you got to go read this next. And I'm like, I don't get my license. I can't get plates. I don't know what's happening. There was a guy in state of New York named Robert E. Mullins Jr., exactly my height, exactly my weight, with the same eye color and hair color. And he had been on the run for 15 years from the FBI, from, state of New York. And he had 4 DUIs and an attempted murder charge.
Oh, gosh.
And all this stuff. But when I got that piece of paper, it just said, you are denied because we think you are a fugitive from justice. All I want to do is drive to Longhorn Steakhouse. Oh, no, that's not going to happen.
So wait, when it happened in 99 and then again in 2021, it was for the same reason? It was both related to that
It's
dude?
still both related to that guy.
Okay.
But it was so many years and so much had happened since 1999, I didn't even remember at first. So then I'm looking at this thing and going, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this thing? And at that point, I realized this is going to really screw me up, because it was during COVID. And you know who didn't go to work in New York where it was to be resolved? DMV employees. No one was at work.
Yeah.
And nobody's at the city governments. Then you have a deadline of a certain number of days before the FBI comes to arrest you. And I'm just sitting there going, man, this is really a bummer. So the upshot, what ended up happening is you go through all the stuff after you finally do what they ask you to do, which all has to be submitted by fax machine, right?
Even in 2021?
Yeah. Yeah. And then after I knew enough of the different people who were coming in, you find out they don't have any fax machines, but there are different floors where the computers are. And if they don't go down 2 floors to where the one computer is with an e-fax, then you're screwed for another 3. It took me 6 months to get my driver's license. And I couldn't do anything. I mean, I had to Uber, beg for rides. It was absolutely unbelievable. And that was all because this other person. And it ends up being the document that I have. And when I finally got it and was talking to that guy, he said, do not ever lose this, and do not ever lose copies of this, because if you can't prove that you're not that guy, and he's still alive, any cop anywhere in America can pull you over and take you to jail like that. Because you have the same name, you're the same height, you have the same weight, you have the same eye color, and that document, the name of it is "It's Not Me," is the slang for that document. It's like DMV code document 11,039-C or whatever, but I have to have that piece of paper
To prove that you're not.
just to prove that I'm not that guy. So that's why I say the DMV is somebody to be scared of, because you're going about your business in your life, and anything could happen to screw up your goals and stuff. So
Well, now I understand why you said there's only one Amelia Ransom, because I do think that there might only be one of me. I've never met anybody else with my exact name. So
no, I don't. Well, and I
that
never
sounds
believe that
right.
it's your name. So it's a stage name, right?
No, that's my name. I can.
So you're for Ransom?
I am.
Oh,
that
so
was
you got.
That's my mom's joke. Like when
That's
I go
your
over to
actual
somebody's
name?
house, like growing up, she would
That's
be
crazy.
Like,
It's not your middle name?
anyone for ransom? It's like. No,
Wow.
my middle name is Claire. My given name is Amelia Claire Ransom. That's it. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Well, good for you.
My parents were wise, I guess. I feel like when people are like, "Man, cool name," I'm like, "Thanks, I had nothing to do with it," but I also think it's cool. Yay.
Well, it's you were born to be for Ransom.
Yeah.
You're born to be a country player if your name is Amelia Ransom.
Yeah, something like that.
Right. So just some of the other things that before we open it up for questions that I wanted to mention about being organized and having a strategy for its success. I'm only partially joking about the three things that I brought up, but what everybody needs to know is that the internet kind of comes and goes, and it's very trendy, and it's got a lot of ways that you can spend a lot of hours just kind of not getting anything done on your cell phone or on websites or listening to this, that, or the other thing. And what everybody needs to do after having the accountant together and get a lawyer, music business lawyer. There's a great one online now. Her channel is Top Music Attorney. She's on YouTube, and she's really good. That would be a person I would recommend, and she's got a huge following. She's working on all these AI cases right now because of all the problems with the AI and the copyrights. So you want to get lawyers, you want to get an accountant, and then from there you got to start thinking, okay, you got my business set up. You've got to have a product. That's the first thing. If you're going to be an artist, you have to have a product, and your product is going to be your first album. And the number of people out there who just don't understand that are online. Like I see these people on Facebook all day long. I got a band and I really need a drummer, and we're playing music by redhead people, and we're also playing the best of the blue-haired people, and I own a Stratocaster. So hit me up. What that means is that person, I can tell right away, is that they haven't set up their business, they don't have a checking account, they're never posting their YouTubes because they don't have a YouTube channel, they might not have any songs written, and all of these things are kind of legit. You've got to have an email address that works, you've got to have a product to hold up and show people like I just did here, because you can't enter a professional business and not at least be competitive enough to have an album, right? So how many albums have you played on? Do you do a fair amount of session work out there?
Yeah, I do a lot of session work. There's a studio out there called Hidden Creek, which they're actually closing. The guy is moving to Appleton, Wisconsin, and going to reopen studio there. But I was just there last week doing another session kind of before they close up, but I've done like a lot of projects there, so I've probably worked with like at least 10 artists that have recorded there. And then kind of to your point of like, I don't know, just how you like present yourself or like how you invest in yourself.
Right.
It's been interesting if we're gonna include sort of the like internet component of this.
Sure.
I play in a band called Thunder and Rain. That's my main gig. We play bluegrass music, and we've really been like hitting the scene hard. We played our first like live show together January 2023, and from there until now, like we've just like really been grinding it out and like taking no no paychecks, just investing everything back into the business.
Right.
And it's really started to pay off. Like last year, we got to play at Bourbon and Beyond, which is one of the biggest kind of like, I don't want to call it a country music festival because it's not. The headliner last year, or one of them was like Ringo Starr and Jack White. So like the Lumineers were one of the headliners, like just big bands, big artists, known names. And just to go from like playing gigs where we're like not getting a paycheck to like playing something like that, it's just been really, really cool. But it doesn't come, without a cost. Like we've worked really, really hard to get there. And we just were approached by a booking agency, like a pretty major booking agency, and got signed with them about a month ago now. They reached out to us, which is really awesome because that's one thing we've been doing all of the booking ourselves. It's about to drive us insane because
it's really hard.
We're booking the gigs, we're driving to the gigs, we're managing the like day of shows, schedules, and advances.
You wrote all the tunes.
We wrote all the tunes. We're singing, we're playing, we're
You're
renting
on
the
YouTube.
van. We're
Got
like
Instagram.
showing up, playing the show, and then
Doing
we have to figure
TikTok.
out: are we going to a hotel tonight, or are we
Sleeping
staying
on
with
the road.
someone? Literally, it's just like
Repairing the car.
We've been doing everything ourselves, but we finally have like a team now that's gonna like start helping with that, which should help a lot. But it was crazy because we met with them, had a Zoom call. They were like, "Let's go, this is awesome." And then like a couple weeks later, we were like, "This is great," because we were actually on our way to Ireland for like a 2-week tour. And we're like, "We're gonna go to Ireland. We'll be in touch when we get back and kind of figure out the details." So we get back and have another Zoom call, and the lady who owns the company was like, "Before we say anything," she's like, "I just have to tell you, like what needs to happen, like first." And she's like, "You guys have, like 40,000 YouTube followers, which is great, or whatever it is. And like your Facebook presence is pretty strong," but she's like, "The two biggest social media markets right now are TikTok and Instagram." And she's like, "Those are your two weakest social media presence." So she's like, literally between now and the end of the year, which is what, like not even 6 months from now.
Yeah, but
she's like, "I need to see your numbers on both those sites tripled. Like you need to be at least 10,000 on both of those sites by the end of the year." And she's like, "I don't say this because I'm expecting you to do that and then I'll help you." She's like, "I believe in you regardless of your numbers. But if your numbers aren't there, I'm just telling you, like festivals aren't going to want to book you. Like the major
Right.
performing arts centers, the bigger gigs, they're not going to want you." She was telling me that she represents a huge bluegrass band, and they pitched them for a festival, and the festival is like, "Yeah, they only have like 50,000 Instagram followers, and this other band has 100,000, so we're going to go with them instead."
I want to jump in here now that we're talking about social media.
Yeah.
Because first off, congratulations on your plan of getting everything to where now you've got some gigs and the band is organized and
Yeah.
you got to go out of the country and play, and now people are interested in you.
Yeah.
The social media thing is very tricky because it's a lot of different things now getting more complicated all the time because the internet is the best and the worst thing that happened to every indie artist in the world. I started my YouTube channel, I think, in 2008 or something like that because YouTube was brand new and everybody said, "You got to have a YouTube channel." And, we had email by then, which was a fantastic thing. But Instagram came later. TikTok came after that. Now the other thing that they're all wound up about is called Threads. Okay, so, and in typical business fashion, when things are happening and something gets popular, somebody from a bigger company comes in and buys it. So this is what happened with all the great radio stations across America. Clear Channel came in and bought everything, and now radio is just doing this. Now those rich people at the top, they don't care, they've already got their money, but Clear Channel may go to bankruptcy. Lots of really great radio stations are going down. And with Facebook, one of the first things they did is they bought Instagram. And, it was just like when Google saw YouTube was going to be a big deal. What do? They bought YouTube. So, I'm distributed by Sony. I have a really good contract. I'd be happy in like a future consultation with anybody online or here in the room to talk to you about how I got that deal with Sony, what it entails and everything. But even those guys, in the last 5 years, all the record company people were like, "Well, what's your TikTok doing?" And I was going, "I'm not doing TikTok." I'm sorry. Well, the songs all have to be 30 seconds long, and we've got this, we've got that, and it's the people reading of their computers piles of statistics that have nothing to do with the music. So that kind of stuff. Now, because of the fact that I'm a Grammy voting member and I've worked on a bunch of marketing campaigns, and people who have aspired, to have a big TikTok or a big Instagram or a big Facebook, all of those things are things that you work on. There's organic reach, and then there's paid reach, which is advertising through Google SEO, or you could go to one of these outside companies that says, hey, my band only has 50,000. I've got to get to $250,000. I only have 4 weeks to do this. And then how do I do that? And you'll find that person who will get those 200,000 people that you need. People being a combination of robots. It's paid reach. It's not organic reach. But the perception in those numbers is really important out there, because booking agents want to see large numbers. Now, those numbers don't guarantee anyone's going to be anywhere, but it makes it look, as the perception is reality, it makes it look like you guys are super popular.
Yep.
And so now what's the plan for your band's album? What's going to happen next with that?
We're in the process of writing our next record. We released our last album in 2024, which we did totally on our own, just self-produced and everything. So we've been writing a lot, all three of the main members of the band, myself included, we all write songs. And we also, there's a huge network of songwriters in Nashville. That's a whole other component of the music industry. So if you write songs, that could be a whole separate masterclass, or a whole separate presentation about what publishers are like, and what it takes to kind of sell your songs to the business side. But anyways, we've been writing and kind of getting things lined up, and we're hoping to release a new record either the end of this year or sometime early next year, hopefully. And we would really love to do that with a label support.
Yeah.
Which
I want to jump in and talk about what label support is.
Yeah.
And making your albums, and how do you get from point A to point B? Because everybody's strategy should be, I got to get a product, I have to have an identity, everything has to be legal, I got to be paying my taxes, I need a PO box, I need to promote on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I've got to copyright my songs, I've got to get a royalty collector. How do I do all this stuff? You can come to me for a consultation on every aspect of that if you want. My email address is info@planetmullins.com. But in the case with her, you want to get major label support. You've been doing it on your own. But let me tell you, as a artist who's been on Warner Brothers twice, I love being an indie artist now, because a lot of the gateways have been opened. I write songs that get out there, and when there's a major label, my opinion now is, if a major label wants to come spend money on me, I want them to spend as much as they'll spend. I mean, I think the most that has ever spent on one of my albums, including marketing, might have been $200,000. And I should have known right then, when I saw all this marketing happening, that they were never going to pay me anything, because that all is deducted against my royalties. But my opinion now is, if you can get an indie or a major or anybody to spend money, encourage them to mortgage their house and spend all of that money on you. And don't try and get the money back, because you're never going to get the money. But you get through these networks, just like going to college. Why do you go to college for music? You do it to get better, and you do it to create those relationships with people that stay with you your entire lifetime. And leaving the house is, I'm just kind of condensing this because we're going to be out of time soon. Leaving the house is a super important thing to do. But just as a songwriter, here's an example. I have a song called Island Girls that I first released on Warner Brothers in 1997. And all I did for that tune is I changed around the chord progression to Heart and Soul, and I wrote this little sing-songy melody to it. That song makes me more money every year, and it's not on the radio. It's not charting. It's not anything except it's in all these markets. It's in grocery stores. It's at the tennis court. It's playing as a background to something this or that. And all of those royalties come to me because I own everything about Rob Mullins. My publishing company is called Rob Mullins Publishing. My record label is Rob Mullins Entertainment. I am Rob Mullins. I am that guy, that human, not the one in New York. I hope they caught that guy by now. But, you know, we have just one more thing about success, then I want you guys to ask your questions. The greatest thing about the internet now is that you can get a lot of fantastic knowledge and correct information you can use online. And when COVID hit, I started doing a thing called the Planet Mullins podcast, where I've been interviewing really incredible musicians like Carmen Grillo, who was with Tower of Power playing guitar for 10 years. He's run a studio for 40 years, one of the most successful studio recording engineers ever. Another guy, Michael Whalen, who's a composer and keyboardist in New York, who writes kind of catchy radio stuff, and he got the gig working on the Oprah show. So he did all the music for 9 seasons of Oprah. He will never want for a thing. He can go buy himself a new mansion because he got that gig, right, doing that particular thing. But these people are all on my podcast. 94 hours of successful people telling their stories. So if you go to my website, planetmullins.com, you'll see a link there for, go to the podcast. And it doesn't cost anything. It's all free. But go there and, start checking out, oh, yeah, this guy used to play with Pablo Cruz, and this guy's working with Stevie Wonder, and this guy did this, and this gal is Lyle Mays' niece, Aubrey Johnson, who's like winning Grammys and doing all kinds of stuff. So go there and watch that stuff and be, encouraged about all the great things that you can learn. But, with the internet, you also have to be really careful. So at this point, does anybody of our huge crowd here today have a question they'd like to ask about any of the stuff we covered, or tell something about your story? I mean, I'm just thrilled to see you because I haven't seen you in 6 months.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we're having a concert here at Classic Pianos at 4 o'clock where Bob Baker and Amelia and Wilson Llewellyn and me are all going to do a fun kind of a combo bluegrass, jazz, New Age, and classical concert. And I know there's still tickets available for that. So, and that'll be streaming as well. So please plan to come or watch it. Anybody? Any questions?
I'll only add one anecdote
Okay.
about the IRS.
Oh, good.
Be sure that the person in your production company who does the 1099s, it all had to do with the period. It all had to do with the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Instead
Oh, wow.
of 300, they thought I made 30,000.
Uh-huh.
Whatever it was, it all had to do with the dot.
Right.
So just, when you're doing your 1099s, pay attention.
That's a very, very important point, because I learned too out there in the world that it only takes 10 seconds of you not being aware to ruin the next 10 years of your life. And this is with people looking at their phone and not looking out the windshield. Like that, you could be crippled for the rest of your life and not be able to play, sing, or do anything, and at the mercy of society and the government or whatever. So, learning to focus, keeping your attention, being present all the time. I also am a huge fan of writing things down. One of my buddies who was here working at a radio station for almost 30 years, he had to move out of the area not that long ago because he did a pro list and a con list about the pros of living in Denver are these things. The cons are these things. And what it really, after adding all that up, it just became too expensive for him to be in Denver, because Denver is still kind of a boom town, costs a lot of money to be here, and he was no longer with the radio station. So he was having to think about that. And what he ended up doing is his brother and his mom have a house in Miami that's fully paid for, and the family took him back in so he can live in Miami and he'll still do some radio, and he'll still do some this, that, but he's going to save a lot of money by not living in Colorado. And, you know, I've lived all over the world. Colorado's pretty cool. I'd say probably Japan. If I could just reload right now and go somewhere that I really love, it would probably be Japan. Do you have a question or a comment?
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
Jamie Cruz.
Hey.
We talked on the combo thing. I was the moderator for you.
Yeah.
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 I always enjoy listening to your stories.
Yeah, well, there's way too many of them at this point.
When's the book coming out?
Yeah, sure, man. So what did you want to talk about?
I just wanted to comment on, so your interpretation of the IRS rules about if you rehearse in your living room, you can write it up.
Yeah, it's percentage of the room.
Yeah, if it's dedicated. The way I look
Yeah.
at it. Yeah. If
Yeah.
you use it for other stuff, your family hangs out or whatever, then.
Totally. There's like what I always think of is I have like a walkout basement that's like fully finished and stuff. And there's a whole section of the basement that's just case. Every guitar, every violin, every mandolin, everything I own is there. And then that's where, like, when the band comes over, just because I have the
That's where
biggest
you are.
space of anyone in the band, that's where we practice.
Yeah.
So that's my little corner. But obviously, if we go where the couch is, where there's also a TV, like, well, we sometimes sit on the couch and watch TV too. So then it kind of becomes like, oh, wait.
Right, but when you're sitting on the couch watching TV, you're taking a break from the tax-deductible room. So the tax-deductible room always has cases in it. It's always presented as a deductible room. Now, in my case, it's, especially in California, the rent was so high, then my accountant would say, well, what percentage of your one-bedroom apartment are you saying is used for business? And I would say 100%, because in that room I have a grand piano. The couch is always for other musicians that can't afford to live here in the state, and all we're ever doing in that room is rehearsing, and I'm teaching piano lessons. And she said, well, let's claim 60%.
Yeah.
All right, we'll claim 60%, and then that way we're safe. But now in today's world, you can always document everything. You can say, on this day, we rehearsed, and here's the pictures, and then we came back later, and here's another picture. And if the IRS messes with you and you send in 52 weeks of pictures, then you're probably going to get the deduction. And it's awful that we all have to do any of that, because I don't want to do any of that. But I'd say 95% of the stuff in the music business that I do, I don't want to do. 5% is enjoyable and fulfills my musical, emotional, joyful needs, and 95% of it is just stuff that just comes with, like, being a human being, trying to deal with the realities of whatever's going on in my life, and it can be very challenging. So yeah, probably the percentage of the room. Otto, what about you? Anything you want to talk about? You just graduated college, right?
Yeah, I'm already enrolled.
Enrolled for what?
For master's.
Okay, master's in what?
In piano performance.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no, I had a great senior recital, and I'm excited to just keep going. But the goal is to be a doctor with a DMA in 4 years.
What's a DMA?
Doctorate of Music Arts.
Okay.
It's PhD with way less research and way more performing.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
And then once you complete that, like, do you have to start looking for a job now, or are you going to be looking later, or what?
Yeah, so that's kind of where my question lies, because I'm paying close attention in case my career goes a different direction.
Right.
But I'm curious what the overlap is, like what young pianists in the classical realm are doing that overlaps with what you're talking about. Because my focus now is I'm a student full-time, and I'm also applying to competitions. I'm getting my degrees, which will hopefully lead to networking in the classical world, which will lead to Carnegie Hall or whatever is like the epitome of that. So, are these people who are doing the Van Cliburn and the Tchaikovsky competition, are they doing the things that you're talking about, or is this really more indie?
No, I mean, if you're talking about, I think just because Amelia's here and we're talking about those genres, it's more geared towards that. But you should go watch Sofia Agravinovich, her interview that I did with her. because she's one of the most successful, and she's right on my YouTube channel. My YouTube is youtube.com/Planet Mullins. I had a wonderful interview with her about 5 weeks ago, and she is touring the world. She's got maybe 12 albums out now, and she knows everything about classical touring, the way to work your way up, all this stuff, the jobs that she had while she was trying to get going. Because at a few years older than where you're at now, Otto, she went and got a computer science degree and had a family, and she worked at like Hewlett Packard or somewhere for 18 years, an 8-hour day job, not doing any music at all, to raise her family. And then now I think she might be, I don't know, 60. She's incredible and so nice. And her, if you watch that interview, you can really get a lot of guidance about how the classical thing works, because it is very hard to take what your degrees are going to be in into an actual career touring all over the world doing that. I mean, she's obviously met some key people. You're going to have key people there, but you have to think, what is my competition going to be? You know, is it going to be the next people 4 years younger than me that play better than I do, and then the older people that might not play better than I do, but they know a better group of people than I do? There's all those questions that go through your mind, and that's where I just always come back to my heroes and my mentors and the strategies that they've used that I believe in. And one of them, a real hero for me, is basketball player. His name is Kobe Bryant. And he played for the Lakers. He died in a helicopter crash. But Kobe had the best advice about ranking yourself in the hierarchy of whatever you're doing, whether it's classical piano or your thing or Cynthia's blues. There's always going to be somebody better than you. You know? And I have a educator friend of mine that I finally, after 4 years, I finally said, please stop sending me videos of 4-year-old Chinese jazz virtuosos, please. Can you just stop? I mean, and at the peak of the, hey Rob, you need to watch this, I was getting about 50 videos a week from people. And I kept thinking, what is the point in them sending me that when A, the person is in China, B, I don't teach kids, C, I'm already overloaded with like a bunch of projects that I'm doing. Why are you sending me this stuff? But the point is, there's going to be people that play better. There's going to be people around your level. There's going to be people that are worse. The point is, benchmark yourself against you. That's what you benchmark against. You take wherever you were, 2 years ago, and you say, okay, what kind of progress have I made? How do I set up getting to my next level of my next thing? Because obviously by now my albums have been out for enough years that a lot of universities and a lot of young people have stolen all of my stuff. It's part of the curriculum I get paid nothing for, just because my albums are on the radio and people are listening and writing all my stuff down and writing books about it and this and that. I can't do anything. But every day when I get up, I'm excited to take myself to the next level of my goals, because I don't care who's just been born, or it's like, this is a thing that I do for my own personal growth. And I would just encourage you to have that viewpoint and try and meet as many people as you can. I mean, obviously I know you personally, I know you're a freaking genius in all these other ways, but you should keep jobs, work real jobs. I'm one of the people that they call me in LA, they call me a freak of nature, because I enjoy every type of job that I do. I still like teaching a piano lesson. I've been doing it for decades. I love it. I love watching people get better at things. And
I will confirm, you're relentlessly upbeat.
I'm so obnoxiously upbeat, it's terrible. But just, benchmark against yourself, and don't try and benchmark against the world, because the world's always going to be somebody. And the worst time is like when you did, because you invited me to your graduate recital or whatever, and I wasn't able to come because I had a gig, but I was thinking to myself, you know, this is going to be that day where Otto's been practicing relentlessly for like months, and there's all the pressure, and he's invited me, and there's all these people coming, and some relative, like a grandma living in North Dakota, that's like 5 minutes before he's going to do this impossible Rachmaninoff, they're going to say, "Hey, Otto, I just found this 5-year-old Chinese kid, and I think he's better than you. What do you think? Here's those parents. There's a few videos. I'm sure you have time to watch since you're doing so well." And that's right before you got to go play the Rachmaninoff after 5 years of worry about that. So benchmark it against yourself. Be nice to everybody. We're about to the end of our time here, so any more questions that anybody has? If you want to reach me, you can do it at info@planetmullins.com. That's my main email address. You can reach out to me for consultation or music lessons or production stuff. I mean, obviously, I'm a registered songwriter with my own publishing company. I do a fair amount of making royalties on my songs. I've got 43 albums out there. Amelia is also, I'm sure, available for remote sessions and in person.
Yeah, I just ironically did like 3 remote sessions last week, all with people in Florida. So I don't know why Florida, but like anybody that needs violin, and I kind of talked about it at the beginning, like I am classically trained, so like my current like kind of focus is in more of the bluegrass realm, but like my scope is much wider than that. So
she's an incredible classical musician. We'll be featuring her on some of my more modern classical and some virtuosic stuff tomorrow at our show, which is at 4 p.m. Mountain at Classic Pianos, and you can go to Classic Pianos Colorado, the website, to get a streaming link. You can go to my website, planetmullins.com, to buy a ticket online. We want to thank Bob Baker for setting up our first of what we hope are going to be many masterclass style workshops where we can talk with people trying to advance their skills in the music business all around the world.
And also, if you're at all curious about what I do with like the bluegrass stuff, actually the band I play with, Thunder and Rain, we're going to be playing here on July 12th because we'll be out here playing at the High Mountain Hay Fever Bluegrass Festival in Westcliff. So we're doing a show here in the concert hall July 12th, and tickets are on sale for that now as well. So yeah.
So I
it's
want to
gonna be
just
really
say
fun.
for people that want to hear it said slowly, it's called Thunder and Rain.
Yes, like when
Like-
it storms outside.
She says it all so quickly because
Thunder and
that's her
Rain.
band, and she's learned to condense it into one long syllable. Thunder and Rain.
Thunder and Rain.
Oh, Thunder and Rain. Meal Ransom.
I've been in Nashville too long.
Meal Ransom. Thunder and Rain.
The accent.
Thunder and Rain. Meal Ransom. Right.
Do people ask you, which one are you?
They do, and I like to say that I am the and. That's my response.
That's beautiful. Okay, well, thanks again for joining us in person and online. And we'll see everybody on the next broadcast of Classic Piano Colorado's Rob Mullins signing off. And thank you all.